Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel Asian Economics. My name's Enaya Bokhari, and today we're joined by expert Syed Ali Zia Jaffery, who's a Pakistani analyst and researcher specializing in South Asian security affairs, relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan, regional stability, and strategic developments across the wider South Asia region. He's deputy director at the Center for Security, Strategy, and Policy Research, University of Lahore, and associate editor for the Pakistan Politico Journal. Ali was also a visiting fellow at the Stimson Center. His work has been featured in both national and international publications. Today we'll be discussing relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan, regional security trends in South Asia, Pakistan's strategic outlook, and Islamabad's role in regional diplomacy and stability. Thank you so much for joining us today. The first discussion topic is Afghanistan-Pakistan relations. My first question is, what are the most pressing issues requiring coordination in addressing border security and regional stability?
Okay, thank you so much for the invite. I think you have raised a very important question at the outset, and I would be very brief in answering this question. Currently, the foremost thing that is marring Pak-Afghan relations is the presence of sanctuaries of the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan and other terrorist organizations inside of Afghanistan. So Pakistan for the past 5 years, for 5 years, has been trying to reason out with the Afghan Taliban that they have to take action against the TTP, which is an inimical force against Pakistan, but they have shown both an inability and an unwillingness to pull the plug on the TTP. And unfortunately, the Afghan Taliban are providing operational support to the TTP. And I'm not saying this; the UN has on many or has on many an occasion said this too. So, because of Pakistan's frustrations over this inaction on part of the Afghan Taliban, uh, we have seen a lot of kinetic activity, especially since the launching of Operation Ghazbul Haq, and which shows that Pakistan has decided that now, since the Afghan Taliban are not uh, showing seriousness in tackling the menace of terrorism, which is a big threat to Pakistan. Pakistan has is left with no choice but to take punitive kinetic actions. This is a big irritant, and obviously the border has become more unstable. It's already a porous and unstable border, and this violence on the border and across as well is vitiating the environment. And because stability in Afghanistan is absolutely paramount for Pakistan, which wants to expand its footprint in Central Asia and beyond with a view to improving regional connectivity and integration. Um, so this thing is very, very debilitating for regional security and border security, as you asked.
Mhm. Thank you. I'm wondering, before the open war broke out in February, how has Pakistan dealt with these border disputes in the past? What was like their consistent policy with it?
Okay, so let's stick to what has happened since 2021. So, when the Afghan Taliban regained power in 2021, Pakistan tried to, tried to tell them that TTP is being was provided sanctuaries by the Ashraf Ghani and the previous administrations in Afghanistan, but especially the Ashraf Ghani government. So this is an anathema for peace and stability in because Pakistan said if there's violence in Pakistan, um, so peace and stability in Pakistan will bring peace and stability in Afghanistan and vice versa. So Pakistan tried to convince the Afghan Taliban that they should take action against the TTP and other inimical elements. And Pakistan also tried to offer support in terms of intelligence sharing and border management and all that sort. But the Afghan Taliban, from the very beginning, showed reticence. and they even asked asked the government of Pakistan to enter into a negotiation process with the TTP. So Pakistan also tried to do that, but it consistently exercised strategic restraint vis-a-vis Afghanistan, thinking that okay, we will not be targeting Afghanistan because it's a brotherly country. We don't want to um, deteriorate our destroy our relations and all that. And but repeatedly we saw. So my center is doing a project called Prism, and in that one of the main things that we do is we track data. And the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is one of the provinces which borders Afghanistan, uh, that in February alone it saw 129 attacks. But after the operation was after the operation started, uh, between March 1 and April 15, the number came down to 20. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not saying, and I've written about it and spoken about it, I'm not saying that kinetic operations are the be all and the end all of counterterrorism, because Pakistan sees it as a counterterrorism operation. It is just one of the parts of a comprehensive counterterrorism strategy. Um, uh, but we have seen that the operation has given us tactical successes, but to consolidate those tactical successes and translate them into strategic gains, a lot more beyond the kinetic plank has to be done. So we exercised patience, we also uh, convinced the Afghan Taliban and the world to engage in economic cooperation and integration. Like Pakistan and China both offered the Afghan Taliban the extension of CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. But all of that I must stress is dependent on peace and stability along the Afghanistan-Pakistan international border and inside Afghanistan. As long as there is fertile pieces of land, as long as there are fertile pieces of land um, in Afghanistan for miscreants and militants, one can kiss goodbye to economic integration and connectivity. So patience has Pakistan has said enough is enough. Um, the strategic restraint in this sense is will not cut it. So we need to um, punish the Afghan Taliban as well as the TTP, because this nexus needs to be broken, because it is once again since 2020 when the Doha Accord was signed. Since then, the TTP has not only seen a resurgence but also recuperated and posed an inaugural threat to Pakistan.
Right. In Pakistan putting its foot down and punishing the Taliban, as you said, are these strikes on the militant camps aimed to destabilize the Taliban's influence or power, or is it more so pressuring them into negotiations?
No, so here's the thing. Uh, I don't think the audiences here would be enamored of um, listening to academic and theoretical concepts. But let me put it in simpler terms. Pakistan wants to. So there is this term coercion, where you try to change the other country's behavior against its wishes. So there are two sides to it. One is deterrence, one is compellence. Pakistan right now wants to compel the Afghan Taliban.
Mhm.
By compellence, I mean that it wants the Taliban to do something it does not want to do, and that action is that either it either they pull the plug on the TTP or they stop supporting the TTP. Either they should take action against the TTP or they should stop supporting the TTP. So that's what Pakistan wants to do, and for that it is employing its military power, especially in the air domain, to coerce the Afghan Taliban. So what needs to be done is that the use of force, has to be uh, mixed with proper messaging so that it becomes a coercive threat. If you say, I'll kill you, and you don't say anything else, that is not a coercive threat. If you say, I'll do this, I'll punish you if you do not do this, then that becomes a coercive threat, that becomes a compelling threat, rather, if you be more if you want to be more specific. So the use of force has to be mixed, A, with proper messaging and signaling, two, with diplomacy, and three, with reassurance and promises that if the Taliban comply, our actions will immediately stop. But and also, uh, there has to be a concerted effort. This use of force is tactically very important because, as I said, Pakistan has lost its patience, and for all the right reasons. We have sustained a lot of losses, and no state can tolerate that um, at all. But what should happen is that um, we must distinguish between the Afghan Taliban and the people of Afghanistan. Our messaging, which is so Pakistan is not against Afghanistan or the people of Afghanistan. In our university we had 120 Afghan students. Um, I've been teaching them for the past 6 years, and they're very well integrated with the university's ecosystem and all. And so the people of Afghanistan and Afghanistan as a country are not Pakistan's enemy. So we need to do a better job of explaining this difference. That's I think really.
Right. No, I agree. That distinction is really important. Open wars like this, do you see this being like a very common, a recurring event between bilateral relations, or do you think this war will kind of be the end all be all and coerce the Taliban?
No, as I said, it's not the end all, it's not the be all end all of counterterrorism, and it's not the be all end all of bilateral relations too. Unfortunately, kinetic operations, A, have a shelf life, small shelf life. Two, uh, they achieve limited successes. So you take kinetic actions, you conduct military operations, you achieve tactical successes. Then when you stop those operations, then after a while, things those terrorists start to recuperate and come back with a vengeance. So the violence becomes cyclical, and that becomes a big problem. So so as long as both countries do not address the structural causes of this conflict and violence, this will continue. This will repeat. It will become a recurring phenomenon. If so, both need to understand that their futures are tied together. If Afghanistan burns, Pakistan cannot remain in peace. If Pakistan, God forbid, burns, Afghanistan cannot remain in peace. Regions grow together. Countries in a region grow together. If there is peace in Afghanistan, our connectivity with Central Asia increases. Trade will increase. Integration will increase. That will benefit Afghanistan. And right now, both Pakistan and Afghanistan, believe you me, they need economic security and stability. So any kind of dialogue that happens between Afghanistan and Pakistan should um, accentuate this point that they will succeed together and they'll fail together. But for that to happen, um, an environment has to be created. You can't have dialogue when uh, one country's territory is being repeatedly used to foment and perpetrate terrorism in another country. So two sides can't talk in when there are when environments like this are, you know, environments like this come to the fore.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on to the next section about Pakistan's long-term regional strategy. I guess to start off, what is their long-term development strategy in the region?
Okay, so we've done a lot of work on geoeconomics and economic security. So we launched Pakistan introduced its national security policy in 2022 under the previous government, and that was based on on the idea that security is a very holistic and broad concept, and Pakistan will now focus on on enhancing economic security, which increases the pie, the size of the pie, um, and then distributes the benefit to each and every citizen of the country. And the core line in that policy was that Pakistan is as strong as its most vulnerable citizen. Um, so that strategy and that policy was based on the idea of enhancing. Geoeconomics was and remains the mantra. Uh, it it actually was based on the idea that Pakistan should become a melting pot for all economic interests. It should provide economic bases, not military bases, and development partnerships, regional connectivity, economic integration. That was to be those things were to be the pillars of Pakistan's development strategy. Um, and the idea was that if Pakistan could become the zipper of South Asia, given its location, it could very well connect the east and the west. CPEC, which happens to be the one of the main corridors of the Belt and Road Initiative, was a very good exemplar of what connectivity, or one of the arcs of connectivity could look like. So that strategy was good, and it still is good. Uh, but you cannot talk about trade and connectivity if there is war and violence around you in the hood. We have seen the war in Iran recently. It's still ongoing, and the ceasefire is very tenuous and shaky. And I do not, because I've been doing a lot of work on Iran. I do not rule out the possibility of a resumption of full-scale hostility. So when you have that, we saw what India and Pakistan did last year. Uh, they um, they engaged in a very high stakes and a very dangerous military crisis, which involved the use of emerging technologies, missiles, rockets, drones. So that's another problem. So this development strategy cannot succeed if there is instability in the region, and if there are there is lackluster reform in within Pakistan when it comes to the economy. So the long term strategy, when it comes to Pakistan's long term strategy, it is to to come in a position, to put itself in a position where it can uh, be the connector of the East and the West. Now, it may sound very gargantuan, but it is possible. It is possible because there are vehicles. China is big on regional connectivity. Its approach to global politics is very different. It it has, it launched the Pakistan Economic Corridor. It has also um, signed a strategic agreement with with Iran. It wants to expand CPEC and of course BRI, every to other countries too. Then there are regional connectivity in regional groupings like the SEO, which provide a conduit for states to talk it out, to iron out their differences and come up, agree to a modest vivendi, which can be more beneficial. Uh, but unfortunately, these groupings may also be hijacked by these conflicts. You saw there was SAARC. SAARC is now defunct because SAARC was hijacked um, by the Indo-Pak acrimony, unfortunately. So there are tools, but there is little appetite to resort to substantive diplomacy and dialogue, because there is a lack of realization about the fact that nobody can take a solo flight. If India thinks that become a it can continue to grow economically and become a powerhouse by ignoring its western neighbor, or by you know using or by promoting its revisionist ideologies, it is mistaken. No country can be isolated, no country can be wished away, um, and it is very dangerous to resort. I just recently wrote an article on brinkmanship, and I would say it is bizarre to think that military brinkmanship can do the trick in South Asia. It can't, because you're not the only one who are um, fighting a war. The other side, which also happens to be a nuclear weapon state or a nuclear armed state, um, it also has the agency. It is not a pushover. No nuclear weapon state uh, and a state that has uh, a strong conventional arsenal um, can be considered a pushover. So I think there's a lot to unpack. One can go on and on talking about um, the perils of this proclivity to use force and run away from dialogue. But I'll stop here.
Okay, I had one more question, kind of going back to the war with Afghanistan. In terms of using military force versus dialogue, Turkey and Saudi Arabia did convince Pakistan and the Taliban to go in another round of negotiations recently. Some experts, or there's like this, I guess, idea that being sort of shoved back into these negotiations isn't progressive and it's sort of stalling things. Where do you see that? What's your opinion on that? Do you think that those talks are stalling progress?
Can you repeat your question? I just lost you because of connectivity issues or something.
Um, Relating back to the war with Afghanistan, there recently Turkey and Saudi Arabia had convinced both the Taliban and Pakistan to go back in a round of talks and negotiations. But there's opinions from experts and a lot of people that these talks are actually just stalling progress, and these negotiations aren't really substantive to dealing with the issue. Sort of, what's your opinion on that?
Okay, so look, every military operation or every form of use of force eventually creates space, should be creating space for dialogue. all kinds of wars, all wars have ended with negotiation. But the problem is that we are dealing with um, terrorism, which A is very hard to define. Two, it has many a connotation. Um, if we um if we really want to understand why the Taliban, the Afghan Taliban, are not taking action against the TTP, we also need to understand Afghanistan's relations with the IS, with the Islamic State of Khorasan province. Then we need to go into we need to discuss other angles. The problem here is that if you do dialogue just to put an end to an ongoing wave of attacks without making the effort to address genuine concerns of the party that is aggrieved, then you are just what you're doing is you're just trying to get some breathing space to recover your losses and then bounce back. So I think unless the Afghan Taliban is convinced that harboring the TTP is repugnant to their interests, these talks will not be effective.
Right.
That being said, talking is always better than fighting. Nobody wants to be embroiled in a deadly uh, bout of violence because as I said before, this will keep on happening. It will not fundamentally alter the landscape in the region or on that side of the region. What it will do is it will bring you tactical successes, uh, but strategic victories will continue to be elusive. So dialogue should happen. Dialogue is important, but Pakistan has um, negotiated with the TTP many a time. But it is now abundantly clear that the TTP does not believe in having a substantive dialogue. What it does is that it uses um, those dialogues as a to get some space and to regain their lost ground, and then they um, come back and they relaunch themselves and become a bigger threat to Pakistan. So it is hard to negotiate with them. So eliminating them is absolutely paramount. That being said, I need to make two things very clear, and I said it in one of my previous answers. There is considerable amount of scholarly research which tells us that terrorism cannot be eliminated altogether. Terrorist groups become dormant, but terrorism as a phenomenon cannot be eliminated. The other thing is that um, the kinetic part is just one of the elements of counterterrorism. What it does is that it creates space for non-kinetic elements. So unless um, a focus is of our focus shifts to non-kinetic elements, kinetic elements will not do it. Until this shift comes, we cannot achieve counterterrorism successes. So I'll stop here.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights. We've run out of time. It's been great talking with you and learning a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Likewise.